throughout my life, the 10 rings gave our family power. If you want them to be yours one day, you have to show me you are strong enough to carry them.
You are a product of all who came before you. The legacy of your family. You are your mother. And whether you like it or not, you are also your father.
I told my men they wouldn't be able to kill you if they tried. Glad I was right.
Hello there, my name is Paul Mount. This is my world of stuff. You're very welcome. Today I'm reviewing the latest Marvel masterpiece, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. This is directed by Destin Daniel Cretton, stars Simu Lee, Awkwafina, Menghe Zhan, Tony Young, Michelle Yao and Benedict Wong. And it's the latest from the mighty Marvel Cinematic Universe. As you probably know, I'm Marvel's bitch. I love Marvel's movies. But I was a little bit apprehensive about this one because Shang-Chi, although he's a character I read in the comics back in the 70s, wasn't a character I had any particular fondness for. And obviously this version of Shang-Chi isn't that version, because I think the version that we had in the comics was supposed to be the son of Fu Manchu, the notorious pulp fiction villain from the 20s and 30s, and his characterization was sort of a depiction of Eastern culture, which really wouldn't go down very well today. So the character's been completely reinvented, but that wasn't so much the problem. The problem really is that it's always a bit of a concern when Marvel bring to the screen a new character. We're so used to the big ones, of course, Thor, Captain America and Iron Man and the Avengers and so on. And Spider-Man, of course, don't forget no Spidey. It's a bit of a worry when they bring a more obscure character to the screen, because you do wonder if the audience love Marvel because of those main characters. But then you think about the success they've had with more obscure characters like the Guardians of the Galaxy and Ant-Man, Captain Marvel, and of course Black Panther. So I think that the audience is interested in what Marvel does, and I like to think that they will go along for the ride even with a character that is completely new to them. But it was interesting to see what they would do with this film, because of course it's a hugely important film in many ways, of course, not just because it's a new Marvel character, because it's got a predominantly Asian cast, and that in itself is groundbreaking. For me, it's not a massive issue, because I like to think I'm fairly colourblind. I just want a good story, and I don't worry about the colour of the skin of the main characters or the sexuality. Just tell me a good story. But I appreciate, as a middle-aged, more than that, as an ageing white bloke in Wales, I'm probably not the person to comment on the importance of the diversity issues that you hear, but I do appreciate them, and I appreciate that this is a massive step forward for this sort of representation. And the disappointment is that China has turned its back on the film and isn't prepared to screen it because they feel it presents stereotypes of Chinese culture. And I think that, again, I can't speak because I'm not from that culture, and I can't speak to whether they feel that's true. But as an outsider looking in, it seemed to me it's more a celebration of Chinese culture rather than stereotyping it. Obviously, it's all about kung fu, and you get dragons, you get all that iconography that you associate with Chinese culture. But is that a bad thing? I don't know. Maybe China is trying to move away from those representations which it feels are dated and historic. I'm not in a position to comment on it. I just think it's a shame that China isn't supporting a film which represents their culture. But that's a whole other issue. The story basically is, we start off with a very beautiful sequence which explains the character of Wen Wu, who's played by Tony Jung, who is basically, one of his identities over the years has been the Mandarin. He's in possession of these 10 magical rings which have gifted him immortality and incredible powers. But over the centuries he's become a bit of a despot, a conqueror, a monster. But he changes his ways when he tries to find this mystic kingdom which is full of mystical animals and strange creatures, because it's something that is new to him and something that he hasn't conquered. But he falls in love with a woman who defends the entrance to the area, and he settles down, marries, and has 2 kids, and puts aside the rings and tries to live a normal existence. But unfortunately, his wife dies, and he's obviously rather bitter about that. He's got 2 kids, He's trying to train them up to be warriors much as he was, but he hears the sound of his wife's voice, and he's convinced that she's still alive somewhere in this mystic kingdom, and he's determined to get there to unleash the power that will release her from this huge portal that he believes that she's hidden behind. Meanwhile, back in San Francisco, we meet Sean, who's working as a car valet with his best friend, Katie, played by Awkwafina. They're living a fairly ordinary life. A lot of their friends think they're underachieving, should be doing a lot more, but they're just having fun. That all changes when they're attacked on a bus one morning by deadly assassins. Deadly assassins, eh? What other sort are there? Who are determined to get the pendant that hangs around Sean's neck. It was gifted to him by his father, and it's one of two that's would give his father the power he needs to access what he believes is his late wife. They get hold of the pendant after a thrilling and visceral fight sequence on the bus, and Sean, who reveals that his real name is actually Shang-Chi, and he's a master of kung fu, basically, although that name for the comic strip doesn't make its way to the film. He and Katie, who's determined to stick with him, travel to McCaw so he can meet up with his sister who's got the other pendant. There's a fantastic fight scene. The outside of the building is my favourite action scene in the film. Halfway through the film, it takes a strange turn. It goes into a different area and becomes almost a different film. That's something I've seen a couple of critics say. They were a bit surprised to see it go in a different direction when Shang-Chi and Katie and some other people, who I won't mention at this stage, find their way to this mystic village, closely followed by Wenwu and his 10 rings gang of henchmen, travel to the village where the finale takes place. I think the problem is with the film, if there is a problem, is that it is two films in one. I love the first hour passionately. I thought it was thrilling, very modern, very slick. The second half, however, goes into a different direction. It becomes Narnian when they go to this strange land populated by bizarre lion-type creatures and strange birds and strange animals. It leaps into the fantastical in ways I wasn't expecting. I just wasn't expecting to do this. Not that it was bad. It was great. It was thrilling. It looked fantastic. The colours and the direction and the design of everything was just beautiful. But it just went in a fantastical direction that jarred me a little bit. And then it becomes a Marvel CGI finale, which again, which is thrilling, and it's great, it's fantastic, it's great, there's great monsters and there's great effect sequences, great fight sequences, but that's very Marvel. And up until the first hour of the film, it wasn't very Marvel. It was doing something a bit different. And was I disappointed by that? Not at the time, because I was having such a brilliant time with this film, and there was so much going on, and it was just 2 completely immersive hours in this wonderful world that Marvel had created. But on reflection, you do sort of think, I sort of wish that perhaps we hadn't had to end with people flying through the air, throwing colourful bolts of light at one another, which we get in a lot of films. And I know it's the lexicon of, if you like, of superhero films that happens, because you want to see superpowered people doing superpowered things. But really, Shang-Chi isn't a superpowered person. He's got incredible martial arts skills, but he suddenly becomes superpowered when he gets hold of some of these rings. And it took it into a different realm, which I felt was not a betrayal, not cowardly, but I think it was almost as if they retreated to their safe place of giving the audience what they wanted. And I'm in no way criticising it in terms of what it did, because it was fantastic, and this stuff always is fantastic. But I think the first hour seemed as if it was going to be something different, and then it resorted to type, if you like. So I think Marvel critics in particular will pick on the last hour and say, well, look at this, it's the same old Marvel. And that could have been avoided, I suppose, if they were particularly bothered by that. I don't know that they're particularly bothered. The only other minor criticism is that, great as I thought Simu Lee was as Shang-Chi, the character is a little bit bland in places, a little bit vanilla. He could perhaps be beefed up when we see him again. I'm sure we will see him again. Give him a bit more depth, a bit more humour, a bit more personality. He just occasionally came across as a bit bland. I was a bit concerned about Awkwafina. I don't think I've seen much of her in the past, but I know she does a lot of comedy stuff, high comedy. But in this, she was very good. She had the comedic stuff, she had the comedic chops, she was funny when it needed to be, but it wasn't this consistent comedy all the way through, which I think was the problem I had with Thor Ragnarok, is that it was trying to be funny all the time and everybody was delivering the same sort of humour. she delivers the humour in the right place, but she has her own story arc, and she's very much learning about all this with Shang-Chi, and she's in awe of things that are going on, and she becomes a different and better person at the end, to an extent. So ultimately, I had a great time with this. I came out of it and I said to my friend who I went to see it with, that's a 10 out of 10 film, easily. But on reflection, thinking about it overnight, I did have those niggles about that ending slightly, and the slightly colourless Shang-Chi himself. But I'm not criticising it as a film, because it is clearly top tier Marvel. Black Widow, which came out a couple of months ago, was great, but it was quite routine, sort of Marvel by rote. This was trying to do something different, and then didn't follow through as much as perhaps it could have done. But I'm not in any way decrying it. It is a great film. It's an artistic film. There are scenes in it which are really genuinely beautiful. The first scene with Wenwu, when he meets his future wife, the fight scene they have is balletic, and it's beautiful and graceful. And I think it deserves to be recognised by the Academy next year. Whether it will be, I don't know, because ultimately it is a Marvel superhero film. But it's just joyously entertaining, as Marvel always is at its best. It isn't a disappointment to me. It's far exceeded my expectations. I just have that one really tiny little niggle about the direction of the second half of the film, which I think slightly betrayed what the first half was trying to do, but in an entertaining way. So that's Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. It's in cinemas now, of course. It opened yesterday, which was Friday. It's now Saturday. And go and see it. If you like good films, go and see it. If you like good action films, go and see it. And of course, if you like and love Marvel, you will not miss it. It's out now. Highly recommended. Why not let me know what you thought of it? Leave a comment down below if you have seen the film, what you thought of it. Were you disappointed? Was it better than expected? Was it what you expected? If you've stumbled across this review looking for Shang-Chi commentary, like and subscribe. I do lots of this sort of stuff. I do classic movies, I do new movies, I do the unboxings and all the usual stuff that YouTubers do. So join me in my world of stuff, and until I see you next time, hey, you know what they say, keep checking the stuff.